My brothers and my sisters, hear me today. This world is not kind to the undisciplined. This life will devour your dreams if you don't develop the strength to stand guard at the gates of your own soul. Potential is not power. Potential is just a seed. It's a whisper of what could be, not a manifestation of what is. And so many of us are walking around celebrating our potential, while living in the reality of mediocrity. You think you're ready because you're gifted. Let me tell you something: giftedness without discipline is wasted glory. Giftedness without structure is a car without a steering wheel. It may look impressive, it may sound powerful, but it's going nowhere. Potential is what God placed in you, but discipline is what you give back to God. It's the sacrifice, it's the offering. It's you saying, Lord, I'm not just grateful for the promise, I'm willing to work the process. Too many people want to walk in their calling, but they refuse to build the character to carry the calling. You want to lead, you want to be elevated, you want the next level, then you better have the discipline to match the anointing. Because the anointing will attract attention, but discipline is what keeps you stable when the weight of that spotlight presses on your soul. You don't fall because of pressure, you fall because of poor preparation. And discipline is preparation in motion. Discipline is when you train in private for the battles you haven't even seen yet. Discipline is when you rehearse victory in the small things so that when the big things come, you don't crumble. Let me teach this clearly: your destiny is not determined by your desire. Your destiny is built through daily disciplines, and I'm not talking about flashy, showy things. I'm talking about waking up when the alarm goes off, even when your body says no. I'm talking about studying when nobody is testing you yet. I'm talking about praying when you don't feel spiritual. I'm talking about holding your tongue when you're ready to explode. That is discipline. That is spiritual maturity. That is where power begins. Power isn't just shouting and laying hands. Power is waking up every day and doing what's right, especially when you don't feel like it. Power is consistency. Power is endurance. Power is when your yes means yes and your no means no. Power is when your emotions don't run your life. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't come from wishing. That comes from work. That comes from discipline. Potential is what God gave you, but discipline is what you do with it. A diamond is not formed by potential. It is formed by pressure, time, and discipline. You've got to be willing to submit to the process that sharpens your edges and carves out your purpose. Because if you skip the discipline, you forfeit the destiny. The bridge between where you are and where you're supposed to be is not just prayer. It's not just vision. It's not just speaking in tongues. It's discipline. It's the ability to commit when it's boring, when it's painful, when it's quiet. It's the ability to honor your commitments after the excitement wears off. That's where God meets you. That's where growth begins. Don't confuse energy with strength. Real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up, it stands up, and it stays up. That's discipline. And when discipline starts to grow in you, power begins to rise. You start to see changes, not just outside, inside. Your spirit gets stronger. Your mind gets clearer. Your walk gets straighter. Your word gets heavier. Why? Because you trained for it. God will never give full power to someone who refuses to practice personal discipline. Because power without discipline becomes destruction. You want to help others, but you can't even manage your mornings. You want to speak into lives, but you won't speak truth to your own habits. You want to lead people, but you refuse to lead yourself. Discipline is the bridge. It's the connector. It's the difference maker. And until you embrace it, you'll live in cycles instead of stepping into seasons. You'll keep circling the same mountain, blaming the devil, blaming people, blaming your past when in truth, the missing piece was your willingness to be disciplined. Discipline is not about control, it's about alignment. It aligns your body with your beliefs. It aligns your habits with your hope. It aligns your daily routine with your divine reason. It says, I'm no longer living by feelings, I'm living by purpose. And when you start living by purpose, you become unstoppable. You stop being swayed by storms. You stop being distracted by nonsense. You stop being weakened by temptation. Because now, you're not just reacting, you're living intentionally. You've got a rhythm. You've got a routine. You've got a reason, and you're committed to it, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. So don't just admire your potential, build it, refine it, guard it with the fire of discipline. Because if you don't, all the potential in the world will leave you sitting in the same spot year after year, frustrated, unfulfilled, and spiritually weak. Discipline is the tool. Discipline is the trainer. And discipline is the only path from promise to power. Would you like the next keynote expanded as well, or a video script adaptation? Weakness is not always a result of what you've been through. Weakness is not just a condition of the body or a symptom of your upbringing. Weakness, in many cases, is a consequence of what you refuse to confront. You are not weak because you lack strength, you are weak because you lack structure. And if you don't choose discipline, you are choosing to stay weak. Because strength is not something that just happens, it is built. It is forged. It is created by resistance and responsibility. And without discipline, you will never grow into it. Don't confuse temporary struggle with permanent weakness. A struggle can shape you. A fight can form you. But when you consistently avoid structure, when you constantly choose comfort over growth, when you ignore what needs to be done, that's not weakness you were born with. That's weakness you've chosen. God never intended for you to live a weak life. He created you with power, with dominion, with authority. But authority without discipline is chaos. You can't speak with power when your life has no order. You can't walk in victory if your habits betray you. You can't claim strength when every decision is driven by emotion, by impulse, by convenience. That's not strength, that's surrender. You see, we love to pray for strength, but we don't want the process that builds it. We want miracles without maturity. We want favor without foundation. But the truth is, strength doesn't just come from laying on the altar. It comes from rising up with discipline. It comes from making a decision every day, not just to try, but to train. It's easy to feel strong when everything's going your way. But true strength is revealed when you choose to do what's right when no one's watching, when your emotions are loud, when quitting feels better than continuing. Strength is choosing discipline when disobedience feels easier. You have to understand that weakness isn't just physical, it's spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional. And every time you skip what you know you need to do, every time you bow to laziness or fear or temptation, that weakness grows deeper in you, until it becomes normal, until it becomes comfortable, until you start calling it your personality, your nature, your struggle, instead of calling it what it really is, a refusal to grow. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is protection. It protects your potential from being wasted. It protects your future from being destroyed by the things you won't control today. Because weakness doesn't just stay small. Weakness multiplies when you feed it. Every time you choose convenience over conviction, weakness gets stronger, and if you let it, it will take over your life. It will talk you out of your calling. It will paralyze your progress. It will keep you in a place God already called you out of. Discipline is what says, I love my future too much to ruin it with a lazy present. Discipline says, I respect what God placed in me, so I will not let comfort kill my calling. Because listen, comfort is a thief. It steals time, it steals progress, it steals potential. And if you don't confront it with discipline, it will steal your strength and leave you weak for life. You are not a victim of weakness. You are a product of your patterns, and if you want to break out of weakness, you've got to break your routines. You've got to silence your excuses. You've got to stop waiting on a feeling and start operating in a decision. Because feelings fluctuate, but discipline remains. It holds you steady when your emotions are unstable. It grounds you when life tries to shake you. It anchors you when everything else is screaming for you to drift away. The Bible says in Proverbs, "A person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls." That means without discipline, you're vulnerable, you're exposed, you're open to attack. It's not that God doesn't love you. It's not that you're not gifted. It's that without discipline, the enemy doesn't even have to work hard. You defeat yourself. And here's the hard truth. As long as you continue to reject discipline, you're choosing weakness as your lifestyle. You're choosing frustration over fulfillment. You're choosing fear over formation. You're choosing cycles over freedom. And until you decide that you're tired of being tired, tired of being reactive, tired of being at the mercy of your impulses, until that moment, nothing changes. But when you choose discipline, when you make it your companion, when you live by it instead of avoiding it, that's when strength begins to rise. That's when your backbone gets built. That's when your spirit stops shaking and starts standing. And you begin to see the fruit of it not overnight, but over time. You begin to talk differently. You walk differently. You serve differently. You lead differently. Not because you suddenly became gifted, but because you became grounded. So stop praying for strength and avoiding the very process that builds it. Stop asking God to make you powerful while you ignore the principles He gave you to get there. Because without discipline, you will stay weak emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially. But the moment you make discipline your lifestyle, you will start to see strength rise in places you thought were forever broken. You are not weak because of what happened to you. You are weak because you haven't yet embraced what's required of you. But if you choose it today, if you pick up discipline and walk in it, that weakness will not last. That weakness will not define you. That weakness will not keep you. Because God doesn't bless laziness. He blesses faithfulness, and faithfulness shows up through discipline. Choose it, walk in it, and watch how your strength comes alive. You were not created to live without boundaries. You were not built to move through life with no direction, no structure, no accountability. We live in a world that preaches freedom, freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. But that's not real freedom. That's not strength. That's not progress. That's chaos in disguise. That's a life headed toward destruction, not destiny. Because hear me, freedom without discipline is not liberation, it's a trap. It's a prison painted to look like paradise. It feels good at first. No rules, no limits, no routine. You think you're winning because you can say what you want, eat what you want, sleep when you want, skip what you want, quit when you want. But slowly, quietly, it starts costing you. You lose your momentum, you lose your consistency, you lose your focus. You look free, but you're actually enslaved to your impulses. And what started as freedom becomes bondage. You can't become who you're called to be if you're a slave to your feelings. You can't walk in power when your day is led by preference instead of purpose. When you don't have discipline, your potential is hijacked by your habits. You may be gifted, but your gift will suffer. You may be smart, but your mind will wander. You may be anointed, but without discipline, your anointing will leak out before it ever gets to the people who need it. Freedom is not the absence of rules. Freedom is the presence of self-governance. It's being able to tell yourself no. It's being able to delay gratification. It's being able to master your flesh and not let your cravings dictate your calendar. That's freedom. Real freedom is having the power to choose the hard thing because you know it leads to the holy thing. Real freedom is when you don't need a supervisor to keep you in line because your spirit is submitted, your will is surrendered, and your habits are aligned with your purpose. People who chase freedom without discipline think they're escaping pressure, but the truth is the pressure never goes away, it just changes shape. The pressure of preparation may feel tough, but the pressure of regret is far heavier. Discipline may hurt for a moment, but the pain of a wasted life will follow you for years. So don't be deceived. Don't fall for the lie that structure is control and routine is bondage. That's the language of people who are comfortable with average. That's how people talk when they'd rather remain in cycles than walk into calling. Let me tell you, every break through you are praying for is on the other side of discipline. Every promotion you desire, every opportunity you dream of, every door you want to walk through, it's all guarded by the question, can you handle the freedom that comes with structure? Even Jesus lived under discipline. He rose early to pray, he fasted, he followed the will of the Father even unto death. That was not weakness, that was divine submission. That was strength wrapped in surrender. That was power refined through obedience. We must stop equating maturity with independence. True maturity is not just doing what you want, it's understanding what you need. It's recognizing that some boundaries are blessings and some restrictions are really divine protection. Discipline doesn't hold you back, it holds you up. It keeps you standing when storms come. It anchors your values when the world sways. It builds your integrity when shortcuts try to seduce you. Freedom without discipline will always collapse. The business will crumble without discipline. The marriage will unravel without discipline. The body will break down without discipline. The mind will wander. The calling will fade. The finances will falter, not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't committed. Capability without commitment leads to collapse. This is why we must teach our children, our communities, and ourselves that true strength is shown through self-control. You're not weak because you're struggling. You're weak if you keep choosing to live without structure. But the good news is that weakness can be reversed the moment you embrace discipline. The moment you stop calling dysfunction freedom and start calling discipline your pathway to greatness. Freedom is not just the right to choose, it's the responsibility to choose wisely. And every time you choose discipline, you are choosing a better future. Every time you wake up on time, every time you keep your word, every time you resist what's easy for what's excellent, you are building a future that will not crumble. You were made to reign. You were made to lead. But leadership begins with self-leadership. If you cannot govern your mouth, your mind, your money, your minutes, you will never walk in the fullness of what God created you for. So today, decide that your freedom will not become your downfall. Decide that you will not be bound by your own desires. Decide that you will honor the boundaries God gave you, not as chains, but as a channel to your greatness. Because freedom without discipline becomes a prison. But freedom with discipline, that becomes power. You can't build a strong life on weak habits. You can't stand tall in public if you keep falling in private. Your future is not shaped by what you say you want, it is shaped by what you do daily. It's not just the prayers you pray, the vision boards you build, or the declarations you make. No, your destiny is hidden in your disciplines, your habits, your routines, your small, consistent choices that nobody else sees. Because greatness is not revealed in a moment, it is carved out over time in the quiet spaces of your life. We love to talk about goals, but goals without habits are empty wishes. Everybody wants to be successful, but not everybody wants to be consistent. Everybody wants change, but not everybody wants the choices that lead to change. You can't hope your way into strength. You train your way into strength, and training is about habit. Training is about getting up, showing up, and following through, especially when it's hard. You can't expect to walk in favor while living in chaos. You want God to bless your life, but you won't manage your day. You want new opportunities, but you won't master your old excuses. You want divine doors to open, but you won't even close the door on procrastination. That's not a spiritual attack, that's a habitual pattern that keeps you from moving forward. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. That's why discipline is not optional, it's essential. Because nothing breaks a cycle like a new habit rooted in discipline. You can't rebuke laziness out of your life. You can't cast out inconsistency. You've got to confront it. You've got to make up your mind that you will no longer sabotage your own future by what you keep doing daily. Discipline doesn't just change your results, it changes your identity. When you do the right things long enough, you stop seeing yourself as weak. You stop identifying with failure. You begin to see yourself as someone who is capable, stable, focused, and strong because now your habits match your hope. A new life is not made in a moment of inspiration, it's made through months of discipline. People want sudden breakthroughs, but God works through process. He works through rhythm. Look at creation. He didn't make everything in one day. He worked in order. He created, he evaluated, he rested. That is structure, that is sequence, that is the blueprint for how we ought to live. You want to create something meaningful, then you need order, you need discipline. You need to establish habits that support your purpose. One of the greatest lies the enemy will whisper to you is that small disciplines don't matter, that skipping one morning won't make a difference, that one more hour on social media won't hurt, that one more compromise won't affect your future. But hear me, the devil doesn't destroy you all at once. He does it through distraction, through delay, through disobedience in the small things. What you tolerate today becomes your lifestyle tomorrow. If your habits don't reflect where you're going, then your habits are betraying your future, and you can't afford that. Not now. Not with what's at stake. Not with the calling on your life. You've got too much in you to waste your days on weak routines. If you want to be trusted with more, you've got to be faithful with the little. And the little is in your habits, the way you wake up, the way you plan your time, the way you treat your body, the way you speak to yourself, the way you show up when no one's watching. There is no such thing as a disciplined person with a disordered life. If your life is out of alignment, trace it back to the habits, because your habits are the seeds of your harvest. If you want strength in your future, sow discipline in your daily life. Build the routine, commit to the process, and when it gets hard, don't run, lean in. Press in, push through, because discipline doesn't always feel good, but it always leads to good. Your habits are either healing you or hurting you. They are either making you stronger or making you stagnant. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your discipline. That's why God doesn't just anoint people, He prepares them. He trains them, He refines them, He leads them through routines, through repetition, through systems. Because before God gives you the platform, He teaches you the pattern. So today, take inventory. Look at the things you do consistently. What is stealing your time? What is feeding your mind? What is forming your future? You don't need a new year, a new season, or a new opportunity to change. You need a new commitment to your daily habits. And if you make that commitment and walk it out with discipline, your life will change permanently. Destiny is built one habit at a time. Strength is formed one decision at a time. And the life you long for is not waiting on a miracle, it's waiting on your discipline. You cannot overcome what you refuse to confront. You will never conquer what you keep excusing. We live in a time where everybody wants to be strong, everybody wants to rise, everybody wants to lead, but nobody wants to face the reality of what's holding them back. Excuses are the language of weakness, and every time you lean into one, you lean away from your purpose. You cannot be both powerful and pitiful. You have to choose. You either find a way or you find a way out. And that choice determines your strength. People don't fail because they're not smart. People don't fall short because they're not gifted. They fall because they've made excuses a habit. I'm too tired. I don't feel motivated. I'll start next week. It's just not the right time. These sound innocent, but they are seeds of sabotage. They're whispers of delay wrapped in soft reasoning, and if you let them settle in your spirit, they will talk you out of your future. They will lull you into comfort while your calling slips away. Discipline demands confrontation. It forces you to look at the man in the mirror and ask the hard questions. Why are you still stuck in the same place? Why are you still battling the same cycles? Why do you keep praying for change but running from the choices that create it? That's not the devil, that's your delay. That's your deferral. That's your refusal to be consistent. And until you confront it, you'll stay where you've always been, surviving on excuses instead of thriving in execution. The problem is, excuses feel good in the moment, they comfort the flesh, they relieve the pressure, they tell you it's not your fault. But while they comfort you, they're also caging you, they trap you in a mindset where nothing is ever your responsibility. And what you refuse to take responsibility for, you give away your power to change. If everything is someone else's fault, then nothing is ever within your control, and you'll wait your whole life for someone else to fix what God has empowered you to change. When you build your life on discipline, you stop waiting to feel ready. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop postponing purpose. Discipline trains you to move even when it's hard, to act even when it's uncomfortable, and to execute even when you're scared. Because strength is not built in convenience, it's built in commitment. And commitment means pushing past your excuses and doing what must be done. Let me tell you something, there will never be a right time. There will always be a reason to wait, always a reason to delay, always a reason to shrink. But discipline doesn't need ideal conditions, it thrives in resistance. It thrives in pressure. Discipline says, I won't be mastered by my mood. Discipline says, I won't let my excuses out. Hawk my execution. Discipline says, even if I don't feel like it, I'll still show up. You have to stop treating your feelings as facts. Your emotions are real, but they're not always right. You can feel tired and still get up. You can feel afraid and still move forward. You can feel unqualified and still operate in excellence. Discipline is what carries you when your feelings fail you. It is what sustains you when motivation disappears. Because motivation is seasonal, but discipline is foundational. People with discipline don't need to be begged to be great. They don't need applause to stay faithful. They don't need to be watched to be consistent. They've made a decision, and that decision overrides the excuse. They've built habits, and those habits guard them from regression. They've set standards, and those standards don't shift just because their mood does. You cannot make a life of greatness out of weak decisions. You cannot create legacy while living off of laziness. You cannot rise to power if your first instinct is to retreat into excuses every time it gets hard. God did not create you to live at the mercy of your preferences. He created you to live with power, love, and a sound mind, but soundness requires order. Power requires preparation, and real love for your purpose requires discipline. Excuses will rob you blind, they will steal your time, they will waste your talent, they will block your breakthrough, but the moment you say no more, the moment you draw a line and refuse to allow excuses to dominate your life, that's the moment strength begins to rise. That's when you start walking in authority. That's when your habits begin to align with your hopes. Discipline and excuses cannot live in the same house. One will evict the other. If you tolerate excuses, you will weaken your future. But if you reject them, if you discipline your decisions, your strength will multiply. Your focus will sharpen. Your future will accelerate. And your life, once stuck in cycles, will begin to move in divine momentum. You are not called to be weak. You are called to conquer. You are called to rule. You are called to dominate your space. But you can't do that when you're shackled by your own justifications. So today, let discipline rise up in you. Let it speak louder than your doubt. Let it silence your delays. Let it replace every excuse with execution. Because in the end, your strength won't be measured by what you wanted to do. It will be measured by what you actually did consistently, faithfully, intentionally. And the only way to get there is through discipline. So now, after everything we've uncovered, after walking through the truth that discipline is your lifeline, your structure, your strength, your habit, and your choice, let me ask you this. How much longer will you choose weakness? How much longer will you let your potential be buried beneath excuses, comfort, and inconsistency? God did not put all this purpose in you so it could sit behind passivity. You were not born to drift, you were born to drive. You were not created to cope, you were created to conquer. But conquering doesn't begin on the battlefield. It begins in your daily decisions. It begins when you wake up and say, I will not let my feelings lead me today. I will let my faith and discipline direct my path. You want a strong life. Build it with strong habits. You want to walk in power. Lay down your excuses. You want to live free. Submit to the boundaries that build you. Because discipline isn't bondage, it's the bridge to everything you've been praying for. You can't just wish it, you've got to work it. You've got to train your mind, anchor your emotions, and rise above your patterns. No more shrinking, no more cycles, no more maybe tomorrow. It's today. This is the moment where weakness loses its grip. This is the moment where strength is not something you admire, it's something you activate. And you activate it not in emotion, but in discipline. Because without discipline, you will stay weak forever. But with it, you'll rise, you'll build, you'll lead, you'll finish, and you'll become everything God created you to be. Now go and live like it.